Into a mark for my first attempt at fly fishing from the rocks. Now, since I put out the first fly fishing video where I talked about just taking up saltwater fly fishing after 55 years of doing many different types of fishing, I've had some fantastic constructive advice via the comments from experienced fly fishers. So firstly, to say thank you very much to all of you that have taken the time to give me that advice. It is greatly appreciated, and it's also been very, very interesting. Now, I've taken on board some of that advice and I've made some changes, so when I get to the mark and I get enough light, we'll have a look at some of the changes I've already been able to make. Well, it's going to be a little while yet before I get enough light to show you the changes, so I'm going to go ahead and do it with the torch on here. So the first change I've made is the line. Now, just going back to the first video where I said that when I started out in this saltwater fly fishing this year, I didn't really want to spend much money in case I didn't like it. So I went out and bought a starter kit, a cheap starter kit, where you get the reel, you get the rod, you get the line, and you get a few other things. So it came with 9 weight floating weight forward line. Now, many of you advised on that video to change the line, get a better line and get a shooting head line, and that's exactly what I've done. I've changed it. I've got shooting head line on now, which comes with the running line incorporated into it. And I went out into the field yesterday and just had my first go at this, and I can see what you're all talking about. I immediately noticed the change, how it's much easier to cast and much easier to get a reasonable distance. So thanks very much for that. Now, to the end of this line that I brought, it's come with a welded loop. Now, also in the comments, several of you said, oh, fit a braided loop connector rather than having a loop-to-loop connection. Well, this has come with this in it, so I'm not going to change it at the moment. I've also sort of researched on the internet that when you get line with a welded loop, there's no need to change it and it works okay. But as I said, I'm not the expert, so if any of you want to comment on that about just going ahead and just using the welded loop, please do so. The other change I've made is the leader. I started off thinking that I may need tapered leaders, either DIY or shop brought tapered leaders. So I started off with a DIY tapered leader, and again, several of you said no, in sea fishing with the flies you're casting you don't need a tapered leader, just go ahead with a normal leader. Well, that's great, because that suits me, because that's what I'm used to with my normal sea fishing. So I changed that, so I've now got a 9-foot 15-pound fluorocarbon leader with just a loop at the end, so I can do the loop-to-loop connection to the fly line. One or two of you said about getting, I think it's called a poly, is it? A poly sinking leader. Well, that's something I'm still looking into, and sure, I can definitely see what areas where you need to get a fly down quickly, that might be really useful. So I'm looking into that, and that may be something that I'll get just to try at certain marks in the future. So those are the changes to date. Other people advise getting a stripping basket. I've got one on order. I can see the benefits of it when you're waded in quite deep, have the stripping basket instead of the line going off in the tide. Whether I need one on the rocks, I don't know, because this is my first attempt, but it'd be handy to have one just to try it and see if I do need the stripping basket at various situations. So thanks for those that advise that as well. I've got a good mix of flies with me for this session. I've got some, I think you call them clousers in there. I've got deceivers, and sort of bait fish imitation flies. Some of them would imitate a sand eel well, some of them would imitate small fry well, and others would imitate slightly larger bait fish well. So a good mix. I've got my shrimp flies with me, but I don't know if I'll be using those at this mark. Probably the The more bait fish, sandeel stroke bait fish would be better at this mark. A couple of flies I've got here that I might use in the future, little white, green and white gold head flies, small, that I thought might be good for mackerel, maybe off the kayak. So yeah, good mix, and we'll experiment a bit today and try a few of these. Before I start the fishing, I'll have a little talk about this mark. Now, if I was normal lure fishing here, I could potentially catch mackerel, garfish, pollock and bass. And if I was to work some lures deep in some deep gullies here, I could pick up wrasse. But that's normal fishing, where of course I can cast much further and cover much more ground. So when it comes to the fly fishing here, I'm just going to be really happy to basically pick up anything. If I can just pick up a fish, whatever it is, I'm going to be happy. Now, you can't see it, but this is all rough ground. About 20 to 25 yards in front of me, I've got a very large rock with not much water covering it. At high water, there'd probably be about 5 foot covering it, but at the moment, at this stage of the tide, we're about 3 hours before high, there's only going to be a little bit of water covering it. Either side of the rock, it drops off deeper, but still rough ground. So I've got to work the fly. I can't work a fly too deep, as otherwise I'll get snagged in the rock. Now, what I need to try to do is see if I can cast at least beyond that rock. If I can get beyond that rock, draw it over the rock and then into the deep gully in front of me, where I can let the fly drop down, then I feel I stand a chance of picking something up. Well, I have to say it's certainly definitely easier casting with this line. Definitely easier. Well, with that cast, I managed to get to the rock, so that's quite pleasing. So yeah, I think when I get used to this new line and improve my casting, I'd probably be able to get beyond it. But well, I thought, is that a fish? I felt a little I felt a little vibration, and well, look at that. Tiny little pollock. Well, I did say anything. Well, at least I haven't blanked. Little pollock. And by the way, this is the fly I'm starting with. Is just a little sandeel imitation fly. I'm trying to take on board this pause that people picked up on. I'm still probably false casting too much, but okay, with that one I reckon I've got just beyond the rock. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to let the lure sink down a bit. I expect I get what people are saying now with these sinking poly leaders, that it gets down quicker, but with fluorocarbon it will sink down, so I'm letting it sink and pausing a bit, letting it sink. Also, a lot of fish will take on the drop anyway. And the other thing I'm trying is, that people suggested, is popping your rod under your arm here and then just pulling it in. I must admit I like the feel of that. I'm not going to work this too quickly. I'm just going to work it slowly through the water. I'm trying, just for practice, I'm trying different retrieves. I'm trying strips and I'm trying the under the arm method that someone recommends. So just it's all experimental at the moment. Because of the rocks behind me, I'm having to keep my back cast short. So what I'm doing is stripping in a little bit of the shooting headline, the heavy line, a little bit onto the reel. I think it's 30 feet. And then trying to keep the back cast short so I don't get snagged in the rocks. I know that I obviously read and some of you may have said about this roll cast, which is useful in these tight situations, but I'm yet to learn that, so I'm not going to attempt that on this session. I'll have to practice that in the field. But so yeah, just trying to keep the back cast short so I don't get the fly caught in the rocks behind me. The other thing I've got to learn is this hauling. I think you've got single hauling and double hauling. I've still got to learn that. I think I could probably do the single hauling, but I don't know about the double hauling. That's going to take some time, I think. And again, I think these things are something that I've got to practice. For this session, I just want to be honest. I just want to get the fly out there and get fishing. I've only got a short period at this first light stage. Oh, I think we've got a garfish following it. Come on. I can see that a stripping basket would be really useful here on the rocks for obvious reasons. This line down on the rocks, I haven't had too much trouble, but I can see obviously with the potential of the line getting caught on the rocks and damaging the line, that maybe a stripping basket would be a good thing, but we'll try that sometime in the future. We're in. Only a little pollock again, but never mind. Another fish. Going to try a different fly. This one I believe is called a white deceiver, so we'll give that one a go. And I've got it tied with a non-slip loop knot. Oh God, seal right where I'm fishing. Oh dear. Well, if I was normal lure fishing, I'd be able to make sure I cast far enough out to get away from that seal. He's working really close here. There's a gully just in front of me here, just this side of that rock I talked about. Yeah, that's where the seal is going back and forth. I have a question for you experienced fly fishers. I've just changed my leader. Put a new leader on. The reason I've changed the leader is because I wanted to experiment today with different flies, so I've changed the fly several times just to see how they work. And I've tied the flies on, so consequently each time I do that the leader's getting shorter and shorter, and I felt it was getting too short, so I've changed it. Now with conventional lure fishing, we have our braid, and then to the end of the braid we tie about 3 foot of fluorocarbon and it acts as a rubbing leader. Now, and we have a clip, a lure clip, so when we want to change lures, no problem, we just unclip it, put the new lure on, and off you go. No, the leader is not getting shorter. Whereas of course with this, if you tie the fly on, it's getting shorter every time. So most of you use a loop, so you can that's what I've done now. I've put a loop on, Do you use a loop so you can just loop a fly on and then unloop it and put another one on so you're not losing any leader length? Or you just don't bother, you just renew the leader when you need to? Or why is it in fly fishing you don't use very small clips? I mean, is that because you feel that it affects the performance of the fly being virtually almost weightless? Does it affect the performance? The reason you don't do it? Just interesting really to find out how you go about it. Hey! Do you know, I was just about to pull that in for a recast, and then felt the tug, and we have a better pollock. Got to be careful here. There's ledges here, and you get that line get over the ledge, the sharp ledge, and you could get a break off. Well, I'm happy with that. I'm really thrilled. Just to catch something here is great. Well, it's time for me to call it a day, and the fishing's gone completely dead anyway. There's no sign of any fish. So definitely a learning curve. My first attempt at saltwater fly fishing on the rocks, and I've learned a lot this morning. And once again, thank you very much for those of you that helped me after the last video with all the advice, and definitely that shooting headline helps the casting, that's for sure. I've still got to master this casting, the timing and the pause, but it's getting better with this line. I'm finding that once I got used to it and I've got enough of that shooting headline out, or not too much on the rod rings, I'm finding it I can get away with one false cast or two, and still manage to get the line out there. The other thing I've learned is with these two trips is I've got to forget normal lure fishing. I've got to forget the distances that we can get with normal lure fishing, and accept that you're only going to get X amount of feet or yards out, and just accept that. And once you accept it, I find actually the casting improves, and just hope that there's a few fish within casting distance. So I really enjoyed it, really pleased to at least catch something. Most of those tiny pollock, but good to get that reasonable one. Pleased to at least catch something on my first attempt. So once again, I hope you found that useful, and many thanks for watching.